Hi guys, so we just finished shooting episode 2 of the podcast with Jodi Allen, and we covered off on biohacks, nutrition and mental health. Jodi, where can we see more of you?
You can come and see me at jodiallennutrition.com, and I look forward to you hearing the podcast.
See you guys.
Wow, that's a loud one. Again,
Alright, so episode 2 of the podcast, still don't have a name for it, and we'll just go through our exhaustive sponsor list at the moment, which is 0. So if you want to get on board and if you're a veteran-owned business or you want to get on board and sponsor, let us know. We'll send you the links at the bottom of the podcast or at the end of it, and happy to work with you. Today, super exciting, got Jodi Allen, a nutritionist, on board. Tell us a bit about why you're here. Really excited to see you.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for having me. It's very exciting. Yes, I'm a clinical nutritionist. I served 14 years in the Royal Australian Air Force. I joined up when I was 17, straight out of school, didn't finish school. Basically, my mum said, "You're a moody teenager, it's time for you to leave the nest." Best thing I ever did. I was a really shy kid, a little bit aimless, a little bit petulant, and yeah, just grew up overnight, basically. And I think spending so long in the Defence Force, it just, I don't know, shaped me to who I am today and taught me resilience and strong will and determination and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I didn't want to leave the Defence Force. I was medically discharged. I had a major spinal fusion in my early 20s while I was in the Air Force. But I managed to, within 12 months, rehabilitate back to running, back to triathlons. I was full on into fitness, but it was a lot of mindset and a lot of physical rehab, and I ended up staying in for another 10 years after a major spinal fusion. So, and my surgeon has never seen anyone stay in for as long as I managed to. Post-surgery. So, but yeah, mindset was a massive part of it. When you've got a permanent injury and pain, it can just overtake your life. And I was very determined, because I was young, to not let my pain define me.
So no, the victimhood mentality that you sort of see.
Yeah, because sorry, it's really loud then. I did see a bit of that in some of my colleagues, that, you know, suffering chronic pain can be a real mental battle, and I saw some people not deal with it very well, and I just thought, I'm 24, I can't spend the rest of my life in that kind of victim mindset. So I was pretty determined to work out a way that I would live with it. So, and my surgeon was awesome with my rehab. It was all about, you know, exercise, you know, maintain good body weight and all that kind of stuff. And that's where I really became fascinated with nutrition and how, you know, that can help with pain and inflammation and that kind of stuff. So it was almost like a bit of a hobby, and I was heavily involved in triathlons with a spinal fusion at the time. So became a great fascination for me, and that's where it all started.
So you got into nutrition sort of later on, that drive for the nutrition and the...
Yeah, well, I was also a vegetarian in my 20s, so...
but not now?
But not a very... No, because I wasn't... Don't judge me. Not a very good one, though. I struggled with anemia a lot, a fatigue. I kept training diaries from when I was full-on weight training and running through my triathlons, and I was always fatigued, always sleeping, and not at any stage was there any education about nutrition. I'd have blood tests and they'd go, "Oh yeah, you're anemic." That was it. Well, so do I do something about that? So there was no, and even though we had coaches, I had swimming coaches, running coaches, cycling coaches, but nutrition in those days was really not something that we paid a lot of attention to. So I had to do a lot of my own research kind of thing. And that's when I was finally medically discharged, my secondary duty was as an explosives ordnance reconnaissance agent. So I had to, very long term, but that I couldn't do the function of that with my spinal fusion. I couldn't pack in and set up these explosive compounds, and I fought it and my bosses fought it for as long as they could, but it came to the end of the day that I couldn't pack in, I just couldn't do it anymore. So I had to protect, my longevity and the health.
Yeah, because once you get out of defence, you've still got the rest of your life, and you're like...
And that's, for me, it was, longevity and not causing, further injury to my back. So I really didn't want to get out. And then I was just getting out, and only other military people get it. When you leave the Defence Force, it's a massive loss of identity. Because I joined up at 17 as well, it was who I was.
Yeah.
Do you know? It was me. Being in the Defence Force was who I was. So I did struggle getting out. And then I raised my girls and had a young family, and then when they were off, and just daydreaming about going to uni. But I did have a fear of failure, and I was a comfort zone. Even though I was in the Defence Force, I also, in the Defence Force, you're protected.
Yeah, or institutionalised. It doesn't matter because you'll still have a job the next day.
And my dad told me once, he goes, "You're just institutionalised." When I was not sleeping, I didn't sleep a wink when I got out. It's just all of a sudden you've got the uniform on, and the next it's gone. And not putting that uniform on every day was a real struggle for me. And my dad said, "You've just been institutionalised. You need to grow beyond that." And I was offended that he told me that, but he was actually right, because it was, that's what I belonged to, and it was just pulled out from underneath me, kind of thing. So, yeah, being in the military, even though it's, there's adventure and it's challenging and all that kind of stuff, there is an element of safety, because you have a job, and you're not going to lose it tomorrow. You're not going to be made redundant tomorrow. No one's going to take it away from you like that. So, so I did have this fear of failure, but... And
then, because, obviously, you get to that position where when you get out, it's up to you to make it or not.
Exactly.
So you're out there, and your life is no longer on train tracks going this way. No matter what happens, I'm still going to be there at the end of the day. It's my choice, and if my life isn't where I want it to be, it's now my fault, and it's ownership, isn't it? Where
it is, exactly. And it's incredibly isolating. Even though I still had all my mates, I didn't lose a single friend or anything. I just lost my job, but it was a big part of me. And then when I started uni, because I was with incredibly intelligent, like-minded people, it was, I found something again. And it was another great decision in my life to go and just get rid of that fear and just dive head straight into it.
And so that's what brought you here today, is that nutrition and learning that the link between, because I've been talking to you, but the brain stomach link, how the body works, your mindset and your mental health is really linked to gut health as well, like.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, the fantastic research is coming out, as we said before. So I'm extremely passionate about it. But the gut-brain axis, that the connection, it's a bi-directional system. The brain talks to the gut gut talks to the brain, and there's some incredible research coming out of it goes both ways, the state of the brain, how stress and anxiety affects our gut and the functioning of our gut. And then, they also consider the gut our second brain. The state of our gut affects our mood. And, there's an amazing study they did in 2018 that of US military veterans, that 40% of military veterans, if they have IBS, before they go on deployment, have a 40% higher rate of incidence of getting PTSD. So and it blows my mind. So now they're starting to do some fascinating research on your microbes in your gut. So you have good gut bacteria and you have detrimental gut bacteria, and they've actually studied veterans with PTSD, the microbes in their gut, and they've actually discovered specific bacteria that are deficient in military veterans with PTSD. So there's an opening there for us as a clinical nutritionist that so I can do now. There's microbial gut testing that we can do in Australia that we can identify what's going on in your gut and specifically target with food, supplements, probiotics. We can actually alter the environment of your gut, which then directly links to your brain as well. So
because they can do it. There was some studies, or maybe it was a YouTube article or Facebook article, and they can so they give other people's gut flora to inject it or put it into your body. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yes. Yeah. And are you talking about also like with stool? Yes. So and they've also done some great research with that with weight loss and that as well. And there's lots of rat studies. A lot of the research we're still in rat study stage, but when it gets to humans more. But yeah, repopulating the gut bacteria. That we can do that with food, which is, really awesome. And, an unfortunate thing too is when we're stressed, depressed, anxiety, PTSD, we're often not in a state to make smart or healthy food choices as well. And, especially with PTSD, a lot of people will use food and alcohol to reduce trauma memories. And it's like a simple term where, we eat our feelings kind of thing. And the unfortunate thing with that is that, it continues this cycle of they're actually looking at depression being a process of inflammation. So people that have depression often have higher pro-inflammatory markers in their blood. So, there's a strong correlation with family history and depression. So it's really looking at how diet and lifestyle contribute to this process of inflammation, because there's inflammation in our gut and neuroinflammation, inflammation in our brain, and that's that bi-directional pathway again with the gut-brain axis.
And because is there so there's a large cluster of neurons in your stomach as well, is there? Like outside of the brain?
Yeah, in the whole GI tract.
Yep.
So it's this communication pathway with our central nervous system that communicates with our GI tract from our mouth to our anus. It's like the whole way. So when we're stressed and we're anxious, it disrupts this communication. And that's why a lot of, a majority, like I would say 90% of any patients that I see that have depression or PTSD or anxiety have IBS symptoms. They usually it's constipation, diarrhea, gas, bloating, all those unpleasant things that, we don't like to talk about. But
yeah, and they give you, so as soon as you go overseas or you go to Tully or you go to the jungle, doxycycline is the Medicaid broad spectrum antibiotic. It just kills everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I was seeing a commando before he went over to East Timor, and they were giving him the anti-malaria drug. I can't think of the name. Yeah.
Is it?
That's the one that the EA's kind of open the door and don't we ever put you on this, come and speak to us.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you on why, but just
I
come and have a
saw
quiet
his
conversation.
transition from being this, I hope he doesn't mind me talking about him today, but he went from this gentle giant to, he was walking down the street and he said he just wanted to, he was angry and he lost his mind. And it was within days after he started taking it. And it was just like, what are we doing to people, man? It's, so, there's just so much information coming out. And another
And people
thing.
don't know it. People don't know it. You go to school and you learn how to balance your checkbook. You don't learn that and the first thing you do when you're sad or depressed, you could break up with your girlfriend or boyfriend, or you leave the army, you get sad, you straight up drink, bang, you start drinking, you start eating, and this is part of that holistic thing that we're trying to do.
Yeah.
That everything's connected. You can't just fix one thing, but nutrition is one of those things. It's a big step.
It's actually massive.
Yeah.
Has a massive influence, and it's, it doesn't have to. It can actually be really simple too. Really simple stuff. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to be on a massive amount of supplements or things like that. I was part of a group. I'm trying to think. International Society for Nutritional Psychiatry Research. So I'm a clinical member. It's quite new and started out in Australia. And we're talking about the latest research that's coming out in psychobiotics. Pardon me if
I haven't heard of that one.
I may have actually said it wrong, but anyway, they'll forgive me. But we were having this discussion that it's really hard with the research because the placebo effect of just getting people to start a program that will involve nutrition and supplements and psychotherapy, that 50% of the patients with statistically significant, that they've found an improvement in mood, the people that are on the placebo. So it even comes down to the fact that just being in that mindset of starting something, you actually don't even have to be taking anything.
And is that the opposite? That you talk about that two-way street. Is that when you feel stressed and anxious, your gut turns, or that's it. My food, I can't eat.
Yeah.
I can't do that. And then the opposite is if you can generate that mental mindset in your head that everything, that you can reduce some of those symptoms. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That's why meditation and yoga and things like that are really gaining popularity, which is just brilliant, because there's even research coming out of the States now in the last couple of years, which has been fantastic, about how so we've got our parasympathetic nervous system and our sympathetic nervous system.
Adrian loves it, yeah.
Yeah, and so, often in PTSD, this sympathetic nervous system is just on all the time. And what that does is, so we think of our parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and digest. Sympathetic nervous system, flight, fight. So when it's switched on all the time, this again is how our gut is affected. It actually slows down our gastric functioning. It slows down our production of gastric acid. It slows down gastric motility. That's where things like constipation and that come in. So, when we're in this sympathetic activation all the time, and they're just not getting a chance to switch off, this is, it's the gut just doesn't have a chance to do its job, and that also, predisposes people with depression to have higher rates of nutritional deficiencies, because their gut's just not breaking down their food properly, it's not doing its job. So that's where meditation is amazing, because it gives them the opportunity to switch off. And it'll be funny, because sometimes when I'm taking yoga, like it'll happen to me, your gut starts going,
yeah.
It is, all bodily functions are accepted in this class, because, they're finally...
It kickstarts it, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I know it sounds bloody weird, I know, it's hippy-dippy, but it's a serious thing. And they've been able to... do some testing on people after they've taken meditation and yoga, and it's reduced their blood pressure, improves their heart rate variability. It's just something so simple.
And so that's just so using meditation. You're a fan of fasting, intermittent fasting?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I've personally, before it became a thing, I've been using intermittent fasting myself for about 5 years. So I was interested in it when Dr. Michael Mosley came out with his 5-2 diet and that, and I used it to actually, for pain, to reduce pain. I didn't use it for weight loss or anything at the time, but I just found that I started the 5-2, so there's different methods of intermittent fasting, and Michael Mosley was a big one on the 5-2, which is 5 days of normal eating, 2 days of restricted calories, 500 calories for women, 600 calories for men, and that's how it first started. I personally wired off, didn't need to sleep. It was socially not really that acceptable because I just didn't need to sleep.
Yeah, I tried doing it. Adrian put me on intermittent fasting, and I did a 3-day no food for 3 days.
And just to kick it off, to 3 days to kick it off, and then get into 8 and 6.
A cycle. And I was after the first, I think lunch and dinner, I was like, I could eat something, and then by breakfast the next morning, I was like, I could not eat.
Yep.
And then going to sleep, I'm like, energy was it was on all day.
Isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. And you're like wired. So some women thrive on the 5-2 as well because they can cycle in and out of it. So there is some evidence with intermittent fasting, especially with women, it can be a hormonal disruptor if you continuously low calorie, like you're staying in that under the 500 calorie mark, may not be best for women. Men thrive on intermittent fasting. They adapt to it really well, and completely adapted into 2 to 3 weeks. Changes your food cravings, changes your taste, doesn't it? Like you're not craving, and then when you eat something sweet, you're just like, man, that's piercing both cheeks. So like intermittent fasting. So, and some of the other benefits of it, I'm not sure if you've heard of the term brain-derived neurotropic factor. That
you're going to start writing this down, mate. I should have brought a notepad. Write it down, mate.
So that's a protein that you basically think of it as like fertilizer for the brain, and it encourages the growth of new brain cells, and it helps to increase the resilience of the brain cells that we already have, and keeps that beautiful neural pathway talking to each other. And intermittent fasting, so depressed people will often have research to back this up as well. Everything I say is evidence-based, so I don't pluck anything out of my butt, but just so you know. So they've found that they have lower levels of this brain-derived neurotropic factor, and there's really cool research coming out now about intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet. So there's a lot of people out there thinking that ketogenic diet is a fad, intermittent fasting is a fad. Intermittent fasting has been around, as a religious, I'm not going to say therapy, but as
it's like Ramadan and that as well.
It's been around for thousands of years, and so it's not anything new, and it's not a fad. It's here to stay because the research is really backing it up.
Because we got slaved with diets over like the last 30, all the actual fad diets, and then someone actually comes out and you're like...
So the problem with fad diets is because people are looking at them just for weight loss, because that's the easiest way to sell. To make money of selling a diet, it's got to be for weight loss. And that's why they come at like paleo, the concept of not eating processed food is fantastic.
Yeah.
They want to put a sticker on it and say it's going to help you lose weight really quick, and then everyone's like, it's a fad diet, don't read too far into it. And then keto replaces it, and intermittent, like when I talk about intermittent fasting, I focus more on like the 8 and 16 windows.
Yeah,
and they try and sell that.
That's how I do it. Yeah.
If you try and look at just weight loss, you're wasting your time, and it's going to be a fad. But all of the actual health benefits, like holistic health benefits,
they're undeniable. They're really well researched, science-based now, and they've been using the ketogenic diet for a long time now with children with epilepsy to really get great effect. They're now doing more research in non-drug dependent type 2 diabetes, reversing type 2 diabetes. And the thing with intermittent fasting, so I do the restricted eating window as well.
That's restricted. So for the guys, that's,
yeah. So that's basically, like, for me, it's personally between, I have an 8-hour eating window between 12 and 8 p.m. and I have to eat well in that period of time. And the thing with intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet is they both produce ketones, and these ketones are what we can use as fuel instead of carbohydrates. So the ketogenic diet can be up to 75% fat in the diet, moderate protein, low carb. And a lot of people will say, well, the ketogenic diet is not practical for people, and some people it's not. You do have to do it well. You have to keep an eye on your electrolytes. You have to eat well. Same with intermittent fasting. A lot of patients who are overweight will say to me, well, I skip breakfast and I'm still overweight. Yeah, but it's not about that.
Yeah.
What are you eating? You may be skipping breakfast, but if you're not fat adapted and you're still eating crap in your 8-hour window or whenever they're often making poor food choices again, especially if they're depressed or anxious, and they're not intermittent fasting. They're not producing ketones. They're not using fat for fuel. But when they kick into that, it's incredibly powerful. And there was a really cool study. So I will send you all the links so you can relate all these links in your show notes if you're doing show notes. I'm sure you will be. But I'll link all these the research articles for you. I was going off on another tangent there.
That's right.
It was really good. You said it was really good.
I can't remember where I was going, but it was another.
Can we just address all the Facebook trolls at the moment watching us drink beers talking about keto? We're well aware that that's not keto. We have a day off.
There's low carb beer. Why are we drinking low carb beer?
Yeah, it tastes like shit, but well, this is low carb. There's what's that? Burley. It tastes alright, but I'm not convinced yet. Unless someone can show me how you make beer with 0 carbs.
We can get them on the podcast next, and they get them on
sponsors. Big Burley.
Yeah. We need
I'm drinking a million of them.
If you're out there, we need a veteran-owned low carb
beer.
Get onto it.
Because I found there's ways you've just got to adapt. So you're saying it's not really practical. That's because I think we came down the first day we came down here to start the next group. Come down once a month, all get together and nut out some ideas, and then we go down to this restaurant. We'll go get something to eat real quick, and it's just pastries, rolls, carbs. I'm like, right. And I was like, I've been in 3-day fasting and then intermittent fasting, no carbs for 2 weeks, and I was gonna that's it. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna eat it now.
How did you feel? How did you feel when you were smashing the carbs?
I was sleep for 4 days, straight after it.
Yeah.
But you can't one of the boys hooked us up with cheap rooms at the QT, and their breakfast. Doesn't matter how long you've been eating keto, you're going to eat everything.
Yeah. Well,
it was good.
It's breakfast.
Because how long does it take people generally to switch into ketosis if they drop their carbs out or they don't fast?
Look, it really depends, but all of us will wake up in a slight state of ketosis because we've been fasting for however long, and obviously the earlier you finish eating at night, so the optimal is 2 hours before you sleep. But It really does depend. It's very individualized, but we all start off in this mild form of ketosis, but as soon as we're hitting breakfast, we're out. And we're using carbs straight away. Our liver's using our glycogen stores that's just been provided by our carb hit. We're not using fat for fuel anymore. And I was heavily training in the era of low fat. Low fat.
Because that came out when was that? When they were like, fats are bad. If you want to lose weight, get rid of all the fats.
And I look back now, and not only was I anemic, I was fat starved. It was all low fat dairy, no fat in your diet whatsoever. So it was all low fat dairy, low fat, yogurt. I was using Nutalex. not even, they come out with now these marketing, heart healthy margarines and crap like that. And I was also using Splenda. I was baking where I was doing triathletes and baking with like faked, this, but I didn't know. I was going, well, this is sugar free, and I really think back now, my memory was shocking. Our brain's made of 60% fat. I was starving my brain, and and that's, so we're getting more information out now, but a lot of people are struggling with, it's information overload. What do I do? Where do I go? How do I start? And the biggest problem is the food out there that we have so readily available is not helping us. It's not helping anyone. So it's a battle.
Because breakfast is cereals, and unless you're going to cook yourself bacon and eggs every morning, which you rush off to work trying to get the kids to school, and you're like, cereal, go for it. Oats, go for it. It's just carbs. Breakfast is carbs.
Yeah, and you're just setting yourself up for the day. You're just setting yourself up for these highs and these lows and these, dips and cravings and, the whole thing in the past of eating every 2 to 3 hours. It's
fantastic marketing campaign to just sell food for a living.
Yeah. Oh, where did I read it? Breakfast, the big whole breakfast cereal thing was
Kellogg,
yeah.
And we just got pulled off YouTube.
You might have to edit that. Oops.
Kellogg becomes a major sponsor, we'll pull this podcast. That's what it was. It was a marketing hit, same as everything. I love a good conspiracy, but you can trace that back to when people started eating cereal for breakfast. It's just marketing.
Exactly.
It's just poor programming, put on poor programming. Like your dad raised you, or your parents, like, this is how you do it. And then now there's so much information out there. It's actually saying, like, well, what's true, what's not, who do I trust, who's not trying to get $1 out of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It's just a minefield out there, but at the same time, it's also really exciting because there's some great research that's coming out that's trying to help us to understand this whole gut-brain connection and how food affects our mood, and the more awareness there is about that, then can really help people.
Yeah, because I phoned up Adrian, was driving to work, and I'm like, in traffic, it was back to back, and I'm like, if anything's going to get me anxious, it's already been like, oh, I'm on time, I'm going to leave exactly, because I'm rushing around, because I'm poor time management, and I'm going to leave bang on the time I need to get to the next place I need to get to, and then I hit one red light, and I'm done, and then anxiety through the roof, and I phone him up, and I'm like, obviously hands-free.
Not really like that.
Yeah, and it was like 2 days into the fast, and I was just like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I just felt fine. Just
awesome.
Cruised it. Like, there was no drama. I was just like, there wasn't dramas.
And clarity. You found that, because brain fog can be a real thing as well. Especially the whole neuroinflammation that we're starting to understand as well. And like I talked about before, that BDNF being quite low in people with depression, and how we can use food and diet and lifestyle. There's cool research out there also about exercise, how exercise increases BDNF as well. And exercise improving our mood is nothing new, but being able to see the research that shows the increase in these kind of neurons and firing our synapses, and just helping with our cognition, our sleep, our mood. There's just it's that lifestyle as well, and that's what I'm into, not just the clinical nutrition part, but also the lifestyle. It's very lifestyle medicine as well.
Because at the psych, it's like it used to be a secondary thing, wasn't it? For psych, you go to a psych and you're like, I'm not feeling real good. Like, if you can get some exercise and do that. And now they're looking at it as a primary treatment.
Yeah, the first one I saw, I don't know if you followed Rhonda Patrick. follow
Yeah,
on Instagram and Facebook,
Yeah.
and she pushes out studies. She knows where to find them. Like I'm not going to spend all day every day looking at research, but she pushed one out the other day saying that the first trial's going on now to prove exercise as a primary anxiety and depression treatment method.
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than going to a psychiatrist, getting 4 months worth of talks and a big bucket of drugs.
Yeah.
And if you've got time, do some exercise. Like they're like, no, let's cut everything else away other than exercise.
Yeah, it should be primary. It should be a primary care, and it's amazing. It's as little as 10 to 15 minutes of moderate exercise. You just get out there and go for a walk, especially in sun, vitamin D as well. They call it the sunshine. The sunshine, the happy vitamin. It's actually a hormone, but they've shown increases in this brain-derived neurotropic factor just in 10 to 15 minutes of moderate intensity exercise, and so it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go and smash yourself, because a lot of people also use exercise as
to burn cortisol and stuff, like
but they can use it in an adverse, it can become an addiction, just like anything else, and it increases cortisol. It's a stressor on the body as well, so we can go too far the other way with exercise, and a lot of people will use that as an extreme coping mechanism. So it is finding that.
And that's why I'm in that happy medium. I don't want to train too hard and get in shape, but I don't want to build my cortisol levels up too much.
Yeah.
You don't want to become a unit.
Yeah, he's super stressed. Like no. Because what's the sunshine? You're talking about the vitamin D, and it's actually a hormone, not a.
Yeah. So vitamin D is actually, they call it a vitamin, but it's actually a hormone, and that is linked to our immune system. And again, low levels of vitamin D often in depressed patients. So, one of the first things we'll do is get, if someone's showing signs of depressive symptoms, is getting, full blood work, because vitamin B12 is also connected to depression and anxiety, and iron deficiency also affects, fatigue and mood, and low levels of vitamin D are quite frequently seen in patients with depression. So it's something as simple as getting 15 to 20 minutes of sun, trying to get it exposed on, bigger parts of your body, because we have this, obviously skin cancer has been a big concern for a long period of time, but we've almost gone so far
the other way
that we're not actually getting adequate levels of vitamin D at the moment, especially. It's a really good idea to have it seasonally tested, because we often have low levels during winter, and if someone's showing frequent colds, poor immune function, we'll definitely test, but you only get a small amount of vitamin D from food, so the biggest part is sunshine. And also, if you can it may not be possible for everyone if you've got like an office job, but getting up in the morning and exposing yourself to some sunshine, go out and have a coffee in the sun, sets your circadian rhythm, tells your body clock, okay, this is the morning, go throughout your day, your circadian rhythm changes throughout the day and preps you for, this is the morning, and then come evening, this is time for me to, start getting ready for sleep and down-regulating.
You have lulls and highs for the day, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. It's a cycle, and it can, especially with screens, disrupt our whole circadian rhythm as well. So that's why a lot of us, especially it's hard when you have your own business and we're spending a lot of time on our screens as well.
Yeah, I've got apps on all my computers that are light controllers. So like you
got
set each time zone. Flux, yeah.
Yeah, Flux.
Yeah, so as soon as it's like, and it tracks sunrise, sunset. So as soon as the sun's going down, your screen lights are
great.
Yellow.
Yeah.
And same on the other end, I haven't got them yet, but there's like, I think they invented these for the guys living at the extreme poles, like where they're super dark through all winter. So they've got vitamin D emitting headphones, I think now. There's somewhere, I don't know, might have to Google it, mate, because I'm probably talking shit, but they have got these lights.
I think you
have a look. It might have been Ben Greenfield talking about it. There's something you put on your head and it shoots vitamin D straight in your ear. Have a look at it. There's a 50-50 shot. This is
It could have been at 2 in the morning down a YouTube rabbit
So
hole.
I'm open. I'm
Human charger. Is that what it's called?
I've got no idea, but is it an earphone or an earplug that has immense vitamin D
Yeah.
or a vitamin D light? Please don't make this up.
Distribution recharge.
Edit. Cut.
Oh no, that'll go.
It's all going.
That'll stay in there, and then I'll just make up less facts.
People are trying to Google it. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell, man?
I thought we could trust this, but yeah.
There's definitely vitamin D lights, because I remember I was listening to Ben Greenfield talk about he gets up when he goes to work and gets nude, he's just got these vitamin D lights just shooting him all over. But I'm pretty sure
Yeah, so
there
light
was a headset.
therapy. Yeah, I don't know about headset, that's interesting.
Because they've got stuff in England where they talk about people who get depressed in winter in England.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah, it's called SAD,
Yeah.
seasonal affective disorder.
They put heaps of
Someone-
vitamin D in the water in like European countries that have no sunlight. I was looking at it.
Yeah, supplemental.
Because when I was doing night shift, my vitamin D levels dropped. My
Oh.
mental health was shocking.
Yeah.
I was in front of a computer all night, and it was like I was really bad. And as soon as I started taking supplements and getting out in the sun in the morning, that was the big thing I did. Went out in the sun and told my body it was like when I wasn't on shift.
Yeah.
I was better straight
Yeah,
away.
shift workers really get the bum end of the stick with.
And the rates of like FIFO guys that are working all day, underground all day, they're all depressed.
Yeah.
Miners, it's massive.
Yeah.
Miners, emergency work at the shift work,
Yeah, exactly.
nurses.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very, sleep is massive, and it's one of those really difficult things, especially with depression, PTSD. Sleep is one of the most challenging
Yeah, mate. You're right.
things.
Human charger.
Sun
Look
in your
out.
pocket.
Human charger, a market disruptor. This revolutionary device is your well-being and channels bright light directly into the light sensors of your brain. Okay, yeah, cool.
Interesting. Cool.
Didn't
Where
make
does it
up.
come? Where does it
You
go in
did-
your
there
ear or
you
does it go in your
I'm
eye?
going to straighten your eyeballs. Directly from under the light.
There's going to be people sitting at home staring at the TV on widescreen.
Okay, cool. See, there's so many. I love biohacking.
Yeah,
It's
so do I.
just-
And what I love about most of it is all they're doing is mimicking the way we were supposed to live before we started jamming ourselves into cities and doing stupid shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I was a big fan of like paleo when it first came out. Not because I wanted to follow a new fad diet, but I'm like, I just look back and go, all you're doing is just eating how people did back before we lived in cities.
Look, paleo was great when it first came out because it got a lot of people back to eating real food.
Yeah.
I think there was a little bit of, with paleo, a little bit of extremist kind of views, almost like, with the, no disrespect to vegans, but, it can be almost quite...
Well, it becomes a cult.
Cult following, and can be quite aggressive. I was, on my Facebook page, I was abused by vegans at one stage there, for recommending, I think it was butter.
Mm.
Yeah.
So just eat plastic. Didn't they? It wasn't margarine another time. We're gonna have to check this. Didn't they invent margarine as like to fatten turkeys up, and then even the turkeys wouldn't eat it? and they're like, let's make it yellow and sell it as butter. I'm not sure.
The turkeys are smarter than us.
Yeah, and they're like, I ain't eating it. Yeah, because everyone like, no, stay away from butter because you'll get fat. It's like, it's opposite, really get your diet sorted out and all the good foods that you can eat.
And I was listening to a Ben Greenfield podcast yesterday about how, people are coming out now saying that intermittent fasting and ketogenic diet is a form of orthorexia. Hopefully I'm saying that term right, when we, have disordered eating, a form of disordered eating. And he's like, it's just rubbish. But I think it's very, I'm very about personalised nutrition. So whereas someone may thrive on a ketogenic diet, someone else may, really struggle with it. And, same with intermittent fasting. Some people just may not get it, or it may not, have a positive effect for them, or it increases their stress levels because they're, taking it to an extreme or restricting their calories too heavily and things like that. So I really think that there's no one diet for everyone.
And that's how I try and gauge it too, because if you're a lot of bodybuilders and guys who want to get into like fitness modeling and stuff, they're forcing themselves to calorie restrict all day, every day, forever.
Yeah.
And if you're getting up every day and going, I have to consciously fight these cravings to eat, that's a problem. But that only happens in the first 2 or 3 weeks when you transition to fat adapted diet. And that's mostly because we're addicted to sugar. So it's painful for a couple of weeks, but after that, I don't crave food. I crave food maybe once a day.
Yeah, I sometimes will go, geez, it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten, but
I do it at 6 o'clock at night.
I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
And, fat adapted. And I think sometimes it is perseverance, but you've also got to look at what else is going on with that individual. Is it really the right time for them? Depending on other lifestyle factors, how much stress they're under. So, there can be, and that's when mindset comes into it as well. But often just the start of something, getting them on the path of intermittent fasting, they're in that mindset like, right, this is a reset, and
it's good because it's a decision point. It's
yes.
To do that, you're making a decision, not a choice. It's not like I'd like to change you. And once you're into it, and I was like, I'm not suffering for this for 3 days, to then go back to what I was doing. So,
exactly.
And it just took me all the way through. But is there an argument with? So they talk about, I felt like only eating once a day, and when I got to the end of that 3 days, I'm like, I could probably go another day or 2 days. Like there was no hunger cravings.
Yeah. Well, look,
they argue that it slows your metabolism. Is that bullshit? Is that bullshit?
That's old school.
Yeah.
That's old school. They've done some great research in the last year or two, that the magic number now for rapid weight loss, I think it was a study in England that Michael Mosley brought out his new book, The Fast 800, I think it is, about 800 calories a day being the sweet spot for at least 2 to 3 months rapid weight loss. And so old school way of thinking was, we should not be going into rapid weight loss. It's, not good for us. It slows down metabolism.
It slows your metabolism. You lose it, you'll put it straight back on.
Yep, you lose muscle mass. That's also, Ben Greenfield's talked about that as well. We can preserve muscle mass. We've got a really good ability to do that. They're talking about this sweet spot of 800 calories a day, for months. And they found that the patients that had the most rapid weight loss kept the weight off for the long term, for the longest period of time, because it was a motivator. They were so motivated for, look at this, I've dropped so many dress sizes, and for men, that visceral fat, which is the worst kind of fat that's wrapped around your organs.
Because that's diabetes. Is that the big one?
Yes, that increases your insulin-like growth factor. You're predisposed to diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. It's the fat that's around your organs, around your belly. That's, you can have fat on your thighs and on your butt. It's not the concern. This is the health concern. And this rapid weight loss had the biggest, most long-term benefit. So a lot of old school way of thinking is really being blown out of the water with some great research to back it up.
Yeah, because I was no way I was going to do and this about the Swiss Egg building the trust, getting you on, because you're one of those people that you've got all these credentials. You care about the people you're with, the people you work for. You're trying to give back to them, and that's why we're like, we need to get people like this who people can trust to get rid of the misinformation. And that's why nothing about Swiss Egg would ever go onto that public domain if it wasn't tested, tried, or we believed
exactly.
in the
and I definitely wouldn't, and that's why I say it's evidence-based, because I'm fascinated by the research. And research can be flawed as well. Some research can be biased. So, and that's again where the individual comes in. Just because it worked for a certain group of people doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. And it's really hard to do research because there's so many other factors that influence patients that are going through trials, and they're all got different lifestyle stresses, and what are they really eating through a trial and things like that. But definitely what blew my mind when we were having this chat recently was about the placebo effect. Just starting something, getting in the headspace, like, right, I'm going to get up, going to get some sunshine on my face, I'm going to move for 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to put my meditation app on, for 5 minutes in the morning. You don't even have to, a lot of people think with meditation as well that, you have to sit in the lotus position and and they talk about the monkey mind and all this kind of stuff. It's almost impossible to empty your thoughts, empty your mind. And what I try to teach people with mindfulness-based therapies and how that can help their gut symptoms and that as well is just accepting you are going to have a whole heap of crap in your head. They actually wired up some participants during a yoga class, I think it was in the States, and how many times the brain activity, and it was like every 3 seconds something's coming, something's happening, something's happening, something. So when I tell people in the class, it's okay, something might be happening every few seconds, 100 times during your practice. It's normal and it's okay. They're there. I see those thoughts. Yep. How you doing? Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to my breath and I'm just going to breathe, and it's okay. And because a lot of people feel that they have to fight it. And I was talking to one of the head psychologists Chris at Mates for Mates, and he said meditation can be whatever it is that takes you out of your headspace, even for just a moment. So it can be gardening.
Yeah,
for me, it's going for a surf. I'm not the best surfer, but man, just being out there on the waves,
focusing on something.
There is nothing can touch me, and it can be walking on the sand, feeling your grounding. Grounding might sound a bit hippy dippy, but it's putting your feet in the sand or the grass, or doing some gardening, or whatever it is, listening to music, playing music. So my dad is a musician and he's been through some significant trauma after my mum passed away. He will sit and play guitar for hours because that gets him out of his headspace for that moment in time. So it's whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, my old man does that. He works in the backyard. Like when I was younger, because he's Swiss, and I was like, this dude's got a problem. He's an old school European that cannot relax. All he wants to do when he's not at work is work in the yard and build stuff. Yeah. And then when I got older, I'm like, nah, that's his meditation. I don't even know if he realises it yet, but he's down in the yard just raking leaves and mowing grass that doesn't need to be mowed for no other reason than his brain can turn off. And he probably doesn't have to listen to mum whinging about shit in the house. But that's his spot.
But it's his escape.
And that's what growing roses, like Max is starting to do.
Yeah. Is it warrior in the garden and the gardener in a wall?
But it really is, and I think it doesn't have to be hard. And a lot of people say, no, I can't do it, and same with the yoga and meditation. A lot of military and first responders will come in to a class and be very skeptical, and then at the end of it they're like, man, what was that? And some of them don't even realize that they're out, they're gone, and then they'll wake up at the end and go, I haven't done that in 5 years. They have actually fully switched off, and that sympathetic nervous system for the first time in maybe years has just gone, man, it's not Irene.
Have you seen these guys?
Tristan.
Yeah, he's a legend, isn't he? And that's the same thing. All he's trying to do is take the woo-woo out of yoga and meditation.
Yeah, and make it more accessible.
Because it's a hard market. Like veterans, dudes especially, but veterans in general, it's a hard market to go, you spent your whole life trying to be the biggest, toughest, baddest person you could to go and fight wars and whatever.
Yeah.
But now we want you to just chill and zen out.
Yeah.
Like, nah, I don't do flowers in barrels.
And it's not that. And I know with Tristan, he does like a more active kind of yoga, and he does the meditation thing as well. And I don't believe he's a fan of the style of that I do, the trauma sensitive or trauma informed. I like to put a label on it. But we're still trying to achieve the same thing, and it's not, ego aside, it is a different style. Mine's all on the mat. There is no active kind of yoga, and that's not because active yoga is a negative thing. Mine is for severely traumatized and injured. So I have veterans that have amputees. I have traumatic brain injury. I have stroke. So they actually can't do the active style of yoga. So this way they go, I'm still going to yoga and I'm meditating, but they don't have to feel like they can't be included because they can't.
Because it's all about where your body is now, isn't it? That's what yoga and meditation, it's not trying to achieve something, it's just being
There's
where
no
you're
expectation.
Yeah.
That's right. There's no expectation. It's just, if you've got a chance to chillax, then that's cool. Yeah.
Do you want to pause for a second?
Yeah, give us a sec.
You should be giving advice.
Mate, you're going to be so dehydrated if you drink every day. He's like, nah, it's the fastest way to hydrate your kidneys. I'll prove it to you. You went out a piss, turns out your yellow skulls 2 beers, it's clear. I'm like, you
makes
got
your
me.
kidneys work hard.
It's a massive diuretic. So how do we kick it? We're just going to kick straight back into...
So we're talking about yoga before.
Are we at the end of the yoga conversation?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Just hit go, mate. You can chop it in when
What about, do you want to
start.
ask me about what tips, what biohacking tips?
Yeah,
I have
so
for-
just general biohacking stuff that guys can do right now. They can start it off. The things that might seem common, like or obvious to some people, but for them, they're like, oh right, I can do it right now.
Yeah. Oh look, it doesn't have to be complicated. Things starting like cleaning up your diet. Diet's a massive one. So as I was talking before about depression being a mood, being a process of inflammation, eating an anti-inflammatory diet. So the Mediterranean diet, which we've all heard about, one of the most highly studied diets there are out there. But it's really back to just whole food, nothing new, but eating whole food, real food, going back to healthy fats. We've been so adverse to fat for so long, and now we're learning more about our brain needs fat for cognitive function, now for our mood. Things like coconut oil, olive oil, good fats. We've been taught for so long to stay away from fat, embracing real food, and really eating when I say an anti-inflammatory diet, it's a diet that's high in antioxidants, which is natural through sources of food. So things like berries, blueberries are the best. There's a cool study that they did with women with depression that having a cup of blueberries reduced their depressive symptoms within 2 hours. And that's like, I'm obsessed with blueberries.
Yeah, I want to go get some blueberries. Yeah.
So everyone should have frozen blueberries in their freezer. Like, I'm serious. So it doesn't have to be complicated. Eating real food, and unfortunately, when we're feeling like crap, we're we're drawn to crap food because it's so readily available.
Convenient,
but if we just stick to heard this probably before, stick to the outside of the aisles of the supermarket. And another tip is when you get to the supermarket checkout and you're looking in your trolley, you think there's a clinical nutritionist looking over my shoulder right now, and they're going to say, okay, dude, get rid of that's highly processed. Because even some foods that are marketed as health foods, Packaged foods are still really high in sugar. It might be gluten-free, but the sugar's still the first or second ingredient. So simple things like, where is sugar on the nutrient label? If it's in the top 3, man, it's, put it back.
I'm about to get educated. So, yeah, righto.
So yeah, it's a really, like, if you're picking up something and there's, so sugar can be hidden as different words as, sugar, sucrose, sucralose. But, if it's in the top 3 ingredients, that's not
base makeup of
put it back, and the problem also with saying don't eat packaged food is you go to the fruit and veggie section and the apples are packaged in a packet, but so really it's about processed food. As minimally you cannot go wrong if you're eating as minimally processed as you can, because when you're taking out the processed foods, you're replacing it with real foods, whole foods. So stripping it as back to close to nature as possible, and healthy fats, bringing in meat, fish, chicken. So protein provides neurotransmitters, which is for our mood, improves our mood. Healthy fats, which improves our brain. Carbohydrates from good sources, so your green leafy veg, nuts, seeds. So I'm not really saying anything new, and you've probably all heard it or read it before, but it really is getting into that mindset of high antioxidants in your diet, which is things like your berries, your green tea, high in polyphenols, coffee, dark chocolate, 75%.
And above?
And above,
yep.
So the higher the cacao content, the better. It's nothing new, but it's really just stripping it back and really thinking about, before you go to put what you're about to eat in your mouth, is it serving me? Is it serving me? Is it contributing to that neuroinflammation? Is it just bucket of hot chips, great when you're hungover and maybe very tempting, but it's going to make you feel like crap within no time. And a lot of people will recognise you keep a food diary. I'll get a lot of patients to keep a food diary even over a period of a week to relay how the food that they eat makes them feel. A lot of people don't realise that, because as we get older, frequently lactose intolerant, we don't tolerate dairy as much, especially as we're older. So, that can have symptoms of diarrhea and, gut upset and things like that. So really making that connection between what you eat and how it makes you feel.
And so we're going to eat healthy, and that's the good. But if we've been sitting so if you've gone on a bender for a week, you're probably not healthy, but you decide now, or maybe 60, maybe 70 years, or maybe a weekend, and you're deciding now. You're like, okay, so maybe I go to the toilet, maybe my stools aren't super cool, maybe I am a bit messed up in the head, but what are the things that I can do to improve my gut health and maybe speed it up? So, can we do kombucha and stuff like that?
Definitely. So, improving the good bacteria in our gut is vital for that gut-brain connection that we talked about. So, prebiotic foods that feed the good bacteria in our gut, things like garlic, onions, things like fermented foods. So fermented foods, kombucha, fermented dairy, if you can tolerate it. Sauerkraut is cool. So they all have beneficial bacteria. If you can tolerate full-fat yogurt, beneficial bacteria in the yogurt. So fermented foods. Getting back to, so this is stuff that we ate
back in the day.
Back in the day that we've gone so far away from. It's we're going back to it, but it's feeding that good bacteria in our gut that helps with those neurotransmitters creating, those mood-enhancing neurotransmitters in our brain by feeding the good bacteria in our gut. So the Western diet has been shown to really reduce the bifidobacterium that's in our gut, so beneficial bacteria. So the traditional Western diet just, almost depletes it. So not good for our gut, not good for our brain.
So if we go and put all this stuff straight back into it, am I sitting on the toilet for a week?
Okay, so there is a thing called, so a lot of people will go out, you can buy probiotics, from the chemist, health food store, really easy. And some people will high dose or even moderate dose on probiotics, and there's something called the Herxheimer effect. So it's a rapid die-off. And so if you've got a lot of dysbiosis there and a lot of the unhealthy bacteria in your gut, you can have symptoms of nausea. There can even be vomiting. Some people will, if there's a high rate of the bad bacteria in their gut. So if you're going in there hard with probiotics, they can often have this reaction with diarrhea and nausea.
And so is that good? Is that bad? Like
Look, what we would do is get them to drop back on their probiotics. So, you can halve the dose, drop it back. But a lot of people, unfortunately, will stop taking a probiotic. Obviously, when they get those side effects, they think, oh, this is not right, I shouldn't take it. But it's actually, we don't want to have those symptoms. We're just going in, you might be just going in too hard and drop the dose back. To reduce those side effects, but it's really sticking with it, and it will build up the beneficial bacteria. But for me, unless I'm treating an individual and I know what their gut bacteria are like through microbial testing, it would be food first. So in a podcast like this one, we just will stick to food.
Yep.
It's feeding the good bacteria with the prebiotics and the healthy bacteria that's naturally in food is the safest way to do it. But yes, be warned if you're going to take a off-the-shelf probiotic. Excuse me, I need my drink.
It's medicinal beer.
I'm not sure that there's probiotics now, but you might have that symptom, and it's normal, and you just back it off a little bit, and then persevere.
So it's all canned. So fermented when we used to. So is it refrigerators that sort of fucked us up along the way? Because you're talking about, so we canned everything and fermented everything and pickled everything.
Exactly.
And then that's growing stuff.
So man was super clever with things. So like the paleo really came against grains and things like that. But what we traditionally did is men were very clever at working out how to ferment and store food and break down. So there's anti-nutrients in some grains like phytates and things like that can actually stop us from absorbing some of the nutrition in what we eat. And there's the discussion about modern grains. They're not what they used to be. But men were very clever in days gone by 100 years ago in preserving food to keep the shelf life, and that was bringing in natural bacteria to preserve it, but that was also feeding the good bacteria in our gut, and more people now are eating fermented foods, but man, no one was eating fermented foods, especially in Australia where it's not probably a traditional part of most of our diets 10-15 years ago.
No.
Was anyone...
That's the thing, because our culture is so new and so young.
It is new.
And we didn't have to go through all those famines and wars where you had to preserve food forever, otherwise you're going to starve.
Exactly.
And that's what the Europeans nailed it.
Yeah, and we're a real mismatch of and also that's the same thing with dairy. So I know paleo was very much against dairy, but depending on your hereditary, your background, you may be able to...
you picked up the gene
you may have the enzyme that's totally fine breaking down dairy, and you're fine with dairy. So there's a lot of people that are consuming dairy that has your, bifidobacterium and your lactobacilli, which are good bacteria, people stop consuming that even though they could. So, but we're all that's where the individual comes into it,
Yeah, I was always a big fan of the paleo diet just because, and I guess blood type diet is something that's probably a story for another day, but I've had a look into mine and it fits me perfectly, whether it's coincidence or whether it's legit. Like I'm O positive and O positive are carnivores. So when someone came to me and go with the paleo diet, I'm like, that's good to go. It's going to have heaps of fat and meat. Yeah. And I found that as soon as I cut dairy out, I felt way better. But I think I can drink milk now and I'm fine, but milk was a massive part of my diet growing up. It's like because the dairy industry is a huge money maker.
Yeah.
So we're encouraged to drink milk all day, every day. And it's like they told us, as a kid I thought that's the only way you can get calcium. Calcium doesn't exist on this planet unless it's in the cows.
And that's such a fallacy, it's such a fallacy. You eat a teaspoon of sesame seeds and you get a good dose of calcium, it's but I think a lot of us aren't meant to be, it really goes against the grain thinking that we should be drinking milk as well.
We're the only animal that drinks another animal's milk.
It's
kind of super weird.
It's a little bit weird, yeah. But
we're the only animals that went to the moon, so I don't know.
It must be the milk. That'll be on a bloody milk carton next week,
But it is very, we're all unique, and it also does depend on where we've come from as well, especially in Australia, where,
Because England, if you're English, you pick up the enzyme to break down lactose.
And so Europeans, if you're of European descent, you're more highly likely to have the enzyme that breaks it down, but most of us, it does drop off as we age. So, it changes, but different strokes for different folks.
I'm sweet, so like ragging out dairy, I'll probably get shot next weekend, but like cheese and chocolate, it's all we eat.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I want to be. And I still love cheese, but drinking milk, I haven't drank glasses of milk for years.
I can't tolerate it. No. But it's a very fascinating thing.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their opinion on it, but and that's why I think I try not to completely bag out any.
It's just different for anyone. Like the diets vary. The gut ecosystem's different, or whatever. Like you can't just railroad someone into one. Obviously, you don't eat cheeseburgers every weekend or processed meat.
No, and that's where that that whole process of inflammation comes in, and what else can we do? What other hacks we do? Well, we talked about meditation before. Simply download a meditation app. So one of my favorites is Insight Timer. Insight Timer is awesome because you can go on there. I know it sounds like we're kids, but you get little stars, you can get stuff, for how many days in a row that, and it's a really good way, especially to start meditation. It's a really good, you can start with a minute, all different types. Also, there's another really cool one for sleep called Sleep Stream. Don't know if you've heard of that. But I don't even know how to say it properly. Binaural beats.
Binaural. They're going to be on the app. There's
cool.
a veteran in America that generates them for us.
Yeah, awesome. Different frequencies in each ear, and put some headsets on. Really cool for slow wave sleep and really calm. And when we sleep, we calm our nervous system down. That's when we do the rest and digest that we talked about earlier. Efflux, putting that on your computer. Stop being on your computer. It's really hard, especially if you work from, got your own business and things like that, but shutting screens off a couple of hours before we go to sleep.
Just get off them.
Blue blockers, things like that. We have check in your phones, have a check-in station. A lot of families can do that. What else is there? What other hack have I got?
Just before you think of that one, can we just, I've got a question. Is sugar kills gut bacteria or inflammation caused by sugar inhibits your gut bacteria? Is that legit?
Yeah, sugar, And sugar reduces your brain-derived neurotropic factor that we talked about before, and it just plays havoc on every part of your system. You know, I don't see in 20 years' time, like, you know, how we demonized fat. I don't see in 20 years' time anyone's going to go, yeah, well, sugar's now really good.
It's actually really good for you.
No,
like,
no.
It was like when I was like 10, 15, early teens, doing sports, like pre-sport, especially sprinting and stuff, you just get like sugar tablets.
Yeah.
And there's like these are energy for sports. I'm like, look at it now. That was just a spoonful of sugar.
Yeah.
Did absolutely fuck all to make you run faster.
That's it, and it's you know, and it's not a good source of fuel. It's so short term, and that's what we're, you know, discovering now with athletes using ketones for fuel.
Yeah,
because
especially endurance athletes.
Yeah, endurance athletes. It's a much better, much more stable form of fuel. And you know, it fuels our muscles, it fuels our brain, you know, and it's good for our gut as well. So yeah, and you know, a lot of people will, you know, if they wanted to look into a ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting, that, you know, going off carbs, it can be, they just have to persevere with it. The first couple of weeks can be tough for some, especially if they've been, you know, consuming carbs for decades. You know, it's but within a couple of weeks, it's you know, your taste buds change, you're more aware, you have more energy, you feel amazing, you're dropping weight, you're dropping that visceral fat that we talked about, wraps around your, you know, your organs and things like that. So yeah, cutting carbs and those processed foods, you know, makes a massive difference, definitely.
That's enough hacks.
I think there's been a.
We're talking to veterans here, mate. We've got three or four key things.
Yeah, let's not over.
Give me 20 beers deep by the end of the podcast.
They're in their car trying to write it down on the coffee toaster or an old beer can, mate. Like, what am I going to write this fucking thing down there? No,
we're going to cut it somewhere. We're going to cut it somewhere.
I thought that was really amazing. I think finally, so episode 2, Jodi Allen. We're going to have a quick talk after this. So follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and
Swiss.8 on Instagram, Facebook's Swiss8 app.
And it'll be linked down below.
Oh yeah, links.
And after this, we'll do a short video with Jodi Allen. We'll link her businesses, and all the links she spoke about, they'll be in the podcast notes. So
cool.
Exciting times.
Thanks so much for having me.
Cheers.
It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.